Hi, I just wanted to do a video about, I think, what is quite a straightforward concept, but I don't hear it discussed very often. And it's something I've observed, looking at melodies and improvisations and things. I'm just going to put it this way. Basically what it is, it's instead of using a whole scale, it's using a bit of a scale. I mean, that's it. That's the concept. But it makes a lot of sense because often we don't have enough time to deal with whole scales. And sometimes you actually just want to be a lot more basic than that. So I'm going to give a few examples and I'm going to try and demonstrate how I might use it a little bit to improvise. So, I mean, it's really simple to go through the basic theory. If we take a G major scale, for instance, instead of going all the way up to the 7th and back, we just go up to the 5th and back. Has a couple of nice things. First of all, that's very much on the beat. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, okay? And it outlines this 1, 3, 5, 3, 1 triad really, really well, okay? And that's basically it for that. I mean, now, some real world examples. Well, one good one is the melody for ornithology, where we have a 5th before, we go up the scale, and we go up to the 3rd and 5th again, like that. And that's just a really simple phrase. Like, you often see these things in bop, it's just very, very common. Even though like bop's meant to be about upper extensions, sometimes we just play on the 1, 3, and 5. Now there's an alternative version of that, which is we drop out the 4th and we have a pentatonic tetrachord. Now probably a lot more people are probably aware of that because it's a common technique for playing difficult chord progressions like giant steps, for instance. I'll try and play giant steps. And then it's that, and it's this. I should probably practice that more. So yeah, I mean, or a tap down and turn around. So let me do it just in a really obvious way. So this is a quick and very effective way of outlining a chord progression without necessarily having to use masses and masses of information. And it just really, you can really hear that. But it sounds a little bit more interesting than maybe just using an arpeggio. So that's a very effective strategy for that kind of thing. Now, with that in mind, we can also do a minor version. So now if I take that, and we have a minor pentatonic one going down. 5, 4, flat 3, 1. And down to the 7th and back, down to the flat 7th and back. And that's Mr. PC, right? So that's another good example. There's a nice Hank Mobley lick which just uses upper and lower neighbour tones. Sorry, try that again. Which is just a simple way of sort of embellishing a G minor, really. Probably dates back to Mozart and people like that. Okay, so there's that. Now, we can run a whole load of different lines. That's major and minor. The minor pentatonic one, for instance, you can... Now, I hinted at another tetrachord there, just very briefly in my resolving line. By the way, of course, we understand minor 7th chords, for instance, as we're doing it in G. I mean, E minor 7th is an inversion of G major 6th, and that also is true of the pentatonic tetrachord. If I play that, or which is 1, 2, 3, 5, and then back to 1 again. That is a mode of that minor pentatonic in E, and the tetrachord just misses out in the flat 7th. Okay, so that's, I suppose, with the Mr. PC example, you can say it's a full minor pentatonic scale because it does eventually go down to the flat 7th. But, You can also look at it this other way. So that gives you those two. It's 4 possibilities: major and minor, diatonic, and pentatonic versions. I don't know exactly what you call these things. They go up to the 5th and back, but maybe for the 4-note version it's tetrachord, and for the 5-note version that's like, I don't know, pentachord or something. Who knows? I haven't even heard them talked about, so I can't really comment. But if you just take the tetrachord, 1, 2, 3, 4, so major 1, 2, 3, 4, and then do it again, you get the major scale, right? So the major scale is a major tetrachord and a major tetrachord, minor tetrachord, melodic minor, right? Minor or minor is pentatonic, right? So there's a few other ones that we can invent, like Lydian. Now that'll work because there's no 7th. That'll work on both a major 7 sharp 11 and a dominant 7 sharp 11th. It's useful. And then maybe Phrygian. That's useful. We've got the Locrian. Again, I wouldn't really bother with that much. Okay, and then some non-diatonic versions. So I want to quickly touch on this one, which is the 2nd tetrachord from a harmonic minor. And I think that's a Hijaz Tetrachord, as it's known in Maqams theory. I think. Might be wrong on that. Correct me if I'm wrong. By the way, a scale called the I think it's Hijaz Kar. I think it's 2 Hijaz tetrachords together. I think I've got that right. Let me just check. Yeah, it's a nice scale, that. So there you go. So you can construct scales using like combined tetrachords. Now another one is the diminished, half whole, half. Okay, and whole tone. Okay, so I'm just going to use some of these tetrachords to play a few bars of Out of Nowhere. And then we're going to go to this one. For that I'm going to use G7, so just like a G major tetrachord. And then we're going to go so yeah, you can see that it does, you know, obviously if you just use that all the time it might be a little bit bland, but you know, it could be a little bit bland after a while on G major, but it does have the effect of, you know, really giving that tonality. Sorry, what's that? Oh, brain is going. So then that goes to the A minor. Now what I did there is I played the diminished tetrachord on E7, and that is basically your altered dominant sound. And this is so common. I have to draw attention to this. So yeah, a good example would be a Hot House. Now that's really, and it goes to a blues thing after that, but that is the half whole half tetrachord being used, or the 4-note figure being used on the dominant, in this case G7, in this case E7. You can hear how they really give you the chord progression. So yeah, but nice effect of that is that gives you a really strong set of notes. So you've got the 3rd, you know, the sharp 9, flat 9 and 1. And I think most people would see this as a, yeah, I suppose it depends from person to person, but you could see it, for instance, as being the start of a diminished scale. instance, half whole all the way. But another name for the altered scale, for instance, is the diminished whole tone. And if I put a diminished tetrachord, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then a whole tone, you get the diminished scale. Sorry, you get the altered scale, beg your pardon. I keep going. Sorry, what am I doing? And that's the altered scale right there, right? Which is a nice way of thinking about it, I think. It can help with the fretboard mapping. Okay, and now the other version, which is perhaps a little less familiar to most people, but students of Barry might be aware that you can take that, if I take that G7 scale and then raise the G up to a G sharp, we get the third of the E7. So running down the G7 to the third of E7. And that gives us the same, so that comes out of the combination of those two things, those two scales. For instance, now you can see that again, that's a sort of theme I'll keep going back to, but you can see that again as being like, that's, I don't know, half-whole scale or something, but it's not, that's not the only way of understanding it, and that's not the way we understand it in Barry Harris land. It's kind of like, the G7 scale, but with that extra note. Bring up the arpeggio. I mean, you can see it different ways. Now, that's a pivot, right? With some other stuff thrown in the middle. You can come up with all kinds of variations for that basic figure. Oh, another good example is the Green Dolphin Street. So, yeah, or, if we're doing it, that's actually taking it like one step further. So that's a really nice little and very common melodic device, and in combination with those simple scale fragments, that should give you some more resources for your improvisations, hopefully. Anyway, leave a comment below and let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. I'm sure you can think of lots of ideas for using these things. Bye.